Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another evening for Jersey First TV. I'm Elizabeth Nader. Very excited to bring you this unique program tonight. This is about the next generation and the Republican Party, something so important that we all need to listen to. How do we engage with these incredibly talented youth? How do we listen to them? How do we change our messaging? How do we understand how to reach them? Something that the Democrats are doing well, have done well, not so much with the Republicans. We need to start to change that. So tonight, AJ, Kate, and Christine, welcome to Jersey First TV.
Thank you.
So everyone, these guys are special. They are interns with Jersey First. Now, for those of you who know Jersey First, we are very committed to our internship program. It's a huge centerpiece of what we're doing, building the next generation, listening to them, having them weigh in on policy and things like that. So these are three of the best interns that we have, the most engaged. That's why they're here tonight. So guys, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Tell us why you chose to be an intern at Jersey First and really why you want to get involved in politics in the first place. So AJ, let's start with you.
Sure. I'm AJ Malillo. I'm a graduate student at Montclair State University. The reason I got involved in Jersey First is actually I was part of the radio station over at Montclair State, and I had the pleasure of interviewing Rosemary Becky when she was running for Congress against Mikey Sherrill, and I just knew that like this woman's incredible, and anything that she is a part of, I want to be a part of. So I saw that she was starting this back up and that there was an internship program, and I jumped on the opportunity as soon as I saw it. So that's why I want to get into politics more broadly.
Yeah.
Because I mean I love our country, and I just want to make sure that it's as good as it always was and better than it ever was for me, my generation, the future generations, and even the past generation.
I love it. AJ, how old are you?
I'm 22.
22. That's awesome. Okay, Kate, tell us why Jersey First, why interning, why politics?
Sure. So my name is Kate Gangemi. I'm a political science student at Clemson University. And I wanted to intern for Jersey First because I love New Jersey so much. I've lived there all my life, and I hate to see people feeling the need to leave because the taxes are so high and it's not a viable economic landscape for them. So I want to work to make New Jersey better and really centered upon a free enterprise system, because I think that's really important, both for the success of New Jersey and for the nation as a whole. So, and that's also why I'm so interested in politics as well.
Right, absolutely. And Jersey First is all about those things that you mentioned. Kate, how old are you?
I'm 20 years old.
Excellent. Okay, thanks. Christine, you are next. Tell us why Jersey First. Tell us why politics.
Hi, everyone. My name's Christine Lombardino. I'm an undergrad student at Gettysburg College, and I'm currently studying Spanish and Italian language. I joined Jersey First because my interests lie in so many different places. I study foreign languages because I hope to be an advocate of some sort for immigration, or a U.S. ambassador, or an immigration lawyer even. So this is really great experience for me. But above all of us here, we know that there's a problem in our country and in our state mostly. And us as young people, we need to take that on.
Absolutely. Christine, how old are you?
I'm 19.
I love it. Oh my gosh, you guys are great. You're making me feel very old, but I can handle that. So let's first start with kind of a grade. I want you guys to give the Republican Party a grade. Remember, what we're here to discuss tonight is how we can do a better job reaching your generation. So AJ, what grade would you give us right now? What are we doing well? What are we not doing so well at a high level?
I would say I would give the Republican Party probably around in the B range, which is pretty good. I mean, I'm a graduate assistant. I would say if I gave you a B, that would be a decent grade. So I would say that in the last 4 years, what we've seen major minority support in the Republican Party of the likes we haven't seen in a very long time. I think that we're seeing a lot of people, especially because of COVID-19 and the restrictions, the lockdowns, we're seeing a lot of people starting to question their own state governments and their local governments that they've been voting in. That's why look at the 2020 census data that just came out, right? Texas and Florida gain seats, New York and California are losing seats. There's a reason for this, and people are waking up. I think also the biggest issue that the Republican Party is winning on and consistently winning on is guns and gun control or anti-gun control legislation. And when people realize that they have to protect themselves because, well, what's the Democratic push, right? Defund the police,
Right.
and along with that, just lock down. You have to lock down in your homes and be scared of everything.
Right.
I think that the Republicans are winning on that issue. So that's ultimately why I say a B.
Okay, so a B is pretty good, AJ, although I know you have some really strong, great opinions you're going to share later with us on where we can improve. Kate, do you concur with the B, or do we not do as well with you?
To be quite honest, I would like to first separate the platform and the values of the Republican Party from the job that we're doing in terms of branding and marketing our message to the broader public. I would say in terms of our marketing, we're probably at around a C right now. I think we're in desperate need of a rebrand. Between 1988 and 2020, the Republican Party has only won one election with the popular vote. And I think that's a major problem and something that needs to be addressed, because clearly, even though the ideas are there, something isn't clicking. And I want to get to the bottom of what that might be tonight.
Okay, I love that. All right, so Christine, you get the final word on a grade for the Republicans. Where do we stand?
Yeah, I think AJ and Kate really hit it right on the head. Hit the hammer right on the head. Sorry. Yeah. And I would also give them a B or C. There's a lot of problems that the Republicans need to start waking up to within their own party, and nothing's going to change unless they start acknowledging these issues. Yeah. So that's why I'm really glad that we're seeing a new emergence of young Republicans taking action like ourselves.
Absolutely. We're excited about that. Now, Christine, you're on campus. Campuses are a major issue for us. Let's discuss that next. We really haven't been winning the narrative there. It appears like you send your child to school, to college, to university, and they come back very liberal with different indoctrination. So, Christine, what's happening on the campuses, and why are we not controlling that narrative, or can we?
I'm not really sure why we're not controlling that narrative. Like Kate mentioned before, we're doing a horrible job with marketing. So I hope we'll get into this later, but messaging is a huge thing. Like, for example, I'm just going to use this for an example. The term Black Lives Matter, you see that, oh my gosh, yes, Black lives do matter. And you don't support that organization, you are a racist. That's what a lot of people think when they see that, and they don't know the whole background. But so yes, there's also a lot of pressure from professors and administration. Sure. I can even speak on about my campus at Gettysburg College. I feel that liberal indoctrination dominates the whole campus. I've even faced some pressure from some professors, but I do not want to stoop to that level, because I find that I do not learn anything new when I'm lying behind a computer screen typing a paper. Just a small story. I hope to be an immigration lawyer, like I said before, so I take a lot of classes that are about immigration. And in my first class, freshman year, it was very apparent that the professor was a little bit liberal, but I couldn't read her. But the rest of the people in the class were apparently very out liberal. So I was lying on my first 3 papers. And, like I said before, I was just fed up with this.
Yeah.
And so on like the 4th or 5th paper, I just expressed myself fully. And after, I was really afraid. But afterwards, the professor said to me, I'm really glad that you did this, because there are a lot of brainwashed students on this campus, and they need to wake up to some of those things.
Yeah.
And I really want to embrace diversity of thought. So I really appreciated that.
That's awesome. That's a good experience. Okay. You know what, Christine, if you can just mute for a second. AJ, do you feel the same way on campus? Are you feeling as though you're all alone, or do you feel like there are others like you that just have to hide their conservatism?
Well, Elizabeth, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, as I intend to be all night, but I've never, at Montclair State, I've never faced a problem being an open conservative, and I'm lucky for that. I will say that 100%. I don't know if it's Montclair State being a great school representing Jersey well, or if it's something else entirely. But I would be lying to you if I said that I felt at all ever discriminated against because of my conservative values, or that I had to hide myself. That being said, other students at Montclair do feel that way, and people have approached me and said, "How can you just be so open and speak your mind and say what you want?"
Yeah.
And that's a problem. Nobody should fear speaking their mind. That's how you're going to learn, right? Like Christine was saying, diversity of thought. Everybody should have a free exchange of ideas, absolutely, especially on a college campus. You should be challenging your preconceived notions going in.
Yeah.
So I think that the big problem on college campuses is that people feel like their grades are at risk if they are going to say something that maybe their professors disagree with. And I think that that's ridiculous. And the problem is when I applied for Montclair, I was told straight up 90% of the professors are liberal. And the way it was described to me was not just vote for Hillary Clinton liberal, like crying at the election that Donald Trump won liberal.
A crying liberal,
said,
right.
Right. And I said, fair enough, but that's not going to stop me. Like, that's not going to stop me from doing it, because it doesn't matter where you go. So I think the big thing is that young Republicans, people like Kate, Christine, and I, have to be the voices that we want to hear, right? You can't be afraid to speak your mind. You have to be the change that you want to see in the world, like Gandhi himself said, right? So
yeah. Gandhi and I think Michael Jackson, they both said that. So Kate, on the campuses, do you see the Republican Party? Do you see the conservatives? Do we have influence there? Or are we just not even showing up on college campuses?
Oh, I definitely don't think that's the case. And I think that's why having speakers come to campus is such a wonderful opportunity, because as AJ was saying, that's a great chance for different voices to be heard. And I think in those cases, it's important, obviously, to be peaceful and to avail ourselves to what's being said by others, even if they do hold a radically different viewpoint.
Yeah.
But I would also like to add that my experience, at least at Clemson, has been very unique in that I work within a program called the Clemson Institute for the Study of Capitalism. And I've had an amazing experience with my professors and the support that I've gotten here in voicing more conservative and libertarian viewpoints. So I think my message to conservatives and libertarians would be, put your money where your mouth is and invest in education so we can get programs that represent conservative viewpoints.
Love it.
Because that's the only way that we're really going to make some headway here. Obviously, there are deeply rooted problems in academia when it comes to the liberal slant among professors. So we need to kind of rewrite the narrative ourselves here and take charge when it comes to education.
I love it. Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about something that has been coming up lately that used to be something we discussed during George W. Bush, which was compassionate conservatism. And AJ, I'm going to go to you for this, because you said to me the other day when we were talking that, listen, this is something we need to embrace. And I heard it and I thought, okay, this is George W. What do you mean by that? Why have we lost ground in terms of appearing as though we are the party of compassion?
Yeah, so it certainly is something that we need to embrace. And I think the first step in embracing that is realizing that it's not an oxymoron. It's saying the same thing twice. I can't think of the word for that. Right?
Yeah.
But conservatism is compassion, right? It is being compassionate because if you look at it in every step of the way, we have an optimistic message for the future of our country, and the other side has a pessimistic message. You can take literally every single issue that's going on in this country. We are for things like the free choice of people to be whatever they want to be and do whatever they want to do, despite the color of their skin, the sex, their gender, whatever the case is, right? The other side says you can't do something because of your sex, of your race, of whatever other characteristic you want to throw out there. And you need us to come in and step in and help you because you can't do it alone.
Right.
That's not the case in this country. You can be anything that you want to be and do anything that you want to do, because we live in a free society. And I think that what's also important to note is that American conservatism is different than European conservatism. And that is what we get thrown in with. European conservatism has much more of like a blood attached to it, right? The Englishman, the Frenchman.
Right.
American conservatism is the most liberal thing you can be, and I mean this in the best way possible, because we're conserving the Constitution, the most liberal document ever written in the history of man, right? So that is what we have to be focusing on. We have to be focusing on freedom, liberty, opportunity, and optimism. The other side can focus on pessimism and bringing people down and fear mongering. Not us.
I love it. I love it. I'm voting for you, AJ. That's great. Christine, unmute yourself for a second there. We had some audio feedback. Let's see if that got fixed. But let me ask you this. I love everything AJ said, definitely. You know, when we saw Biden in the debates and all the things that were happening pre-election, we got this constant message that the polling said that he came off as compassionate. How is that possible that, you know, it just seemed crazy for us that Joe Biden was seen as compassionate, but this is something that apparently they owned that. And of course, Trump wasn't that way. What's your opinion on it?
You know, I think this has a lot to do with identity politics. They see this old man with nice designer sunglasses on. Oh, he looks so great. And they think he's amazing. You know, he's very different from Donald Trump. Right. Trump, you know, he's a little bit rough on the edges. He'll tell you how it is. You know, he's not, you know, you know how he is. He's not really too manicured looking. Yeah. So they buy into this identity politics, which I think is a huge problem. People need to start educating themselves on who these people are, not what they look like, and to the public, you know?
Yeah.
What goes on behind closed doors?
Yeah, and I think the problem with that is like you say, people are reacting to what they perceive to be as compassion, but not looking at the policies behind it. And speaking of that, Kate, economics, I mean, it's hard for anyone, I think, to argue with the facts and the data that we don't have the better ideas when it comes to economics, but of course they do. So I want you to weigh in on where we stand with that as a party and how you feel about our policies and how to better communicate those to your age group.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's pretty clear to me that the advent of the free market system has been the greatest accomplishment of humanity. And we've seen that in the last 200 years. I mean, the standard of living has increased so dramatically. So I don't think that there's any argument to be made here that capitalism isn't benefiting everyone. When we employ capitalism and when we have a free market, everyone is lifted up and everyone has a better standard of living. I think when we look at Trump's policies and what he was able to do with the economy, it's clear that it doesn't matter if you were white or black, your living situation was greatly improved by the fact that unemployment was at a record low, 3.5% before the pandemic. You can't argue with the numbers. That's the lowest that it's been in 50 years. The Dow reached new highs. Yep. So, you know, those sorts of things, again, are compassionate. This benefits everyone. So I definitely think that we have the high ground on economics. And I think that that's something we need to communicate to young voters, because although they might not be financially independent right now and they don't see how these economic policies are impacting them directly, they will in a couple of years, and they'll be glad that we have a free market system.
So
can I jump in quick?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you compassionate capitalism, but AJ, you weigh in on that. I was just going to go to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly what Kate said, and I have some numbers written down, right? In the last 200 years, 200 years ago, 85% of the globe was in absolute poverty. It's 16% now. And so per capita has increased, per capita revenue has increased 1,000% in the past 100 years. 130,000 people every single day, every 24 hours are out of poverty.
Wow.
130,000 people every single day, right? If we consider, if we keep on this track, this free market capitalist track, we're going to be doing the right thing. And that is just one of the many ways that conservatism, capitalism is compassionate. And we could go more and more with each and every issue that we'll discuss today.
Yeah.
My goal is to show the positive message that this is the compassionate side. This is the hope side.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you bring up such a good point, you guys, about messaging about why capitalism is compassionate, why it's changing the world for the better, and why it's not evil as it gets branded all the time. And of course, we know that Trump, of course, did a great job from an economy standpoint. But let's talk about the Trump factor. Christine, Your generation, how do they view him? Where do we stand with him and your age group?
People in my age group view him as this evil dictator because, like I said before, they do not look into his policies and who he is actually. But I think the future of the GOP needs to stave away from this whole Trumpism to grow themselves. This is a very hard thing to take on because, Donald Trump did grow the Republican Party immensely. So that's great. We have all these different organizations like Black Voices for Trump, Latinos for Trump, Asians for Trump, Women for Trump. I could go on. But, when I see candidates that are trying to go for governor or Congress, senator, and they're saying, oh, you should vote for me because I'm pro-Trump. Okay, that's great. I'm a Republican. I really like Donald Trump as a president. But what are you going to say to my Democratic neighbor? They're not going to like that.
Right. All right. So that's interesting. So let me ask you this, 2024, what happens if he's the top of the ticket? What happens with your generation? How would you sell that to them? And you know what, Kate, why don't you weigh in on that?
To be honest, I think it's a pretty pessimistic outlook if we have to attempt to sell Trump to young voters in 2024. I really don't see the path forward. I think that many Trumpist policies, to be honest, aren't in line with the Republican platform as it's been understood for the last couple decades. To me, tariffs and getting into foreign trade wars, that's not free enterprise, and that's what we've been talking about. So I think he does fall short on some of the issues, although obviously, as I said, you can't deny the good things that he has done for the economy. So it's a mixed bag. But I think when it comes down to it, what my generation just can't reconcile when it comes to him is how brash he is and his demeanor. And I wish that people could look past that. But unfortunately, I think too much damage has been done at this point. And moving away from Trump is going to be difficult because you can't really win with him, but you also can't win without him. And I think a large portion of the Republican base will feel betrayed if we move away from Trump. I know we saw, right after what happened at the Capitol, people were ready to separate from Trump for a minute there. Yeah. And then, we were right back to, well, if you don't support Trump in 2024, you're a rhino, you're not going to be a Republican in good standing. So, right now, the identity of the party is very much aligned with him, and it seems pretty intertwined at this moment in time. So I don't know how we go about separating the two, but I think that's something that needs to happen. And that's part of this larger rebranding mission. If we are going to attract young voters, it's just that too much damage has been done and we need a new voice.
Well, it's interesting you say that. And I think, we talk about 2024, but AJ 2022 is around the corner. And of course, we know he's going to influence that quite a bit, and he's positioning himself to do that. What is your generation? How do they look at 2022? Because, it's if Trump can help us win back the House, if we can or get close or win back the Senate, whatever that looks like, isn't that a good thing? So is his involvement not a positive in the 2022 race?
I think that Donald Trump's involvement is a positive in the 2022 race because if it's done correctly, if it's used correctly, right? So I think that if we're looking at Trump in 2022 and 2024, his best, I'll say, advantage is not being the politician, is not being the person on the top of the ticket. Okay. No, it's being the person who will stand there on the stage, introduce the candidate, right? But take all the slings and arrows for the candidate. Because Donald Trump is a mud monster. He's covered in mud, and he'll sling and fight and do all that. And nothing seems to stick, the Teflon Don. But I think that it's still unappealing to young voters, like Christine and Kate were saying, sort of the brashness, things like that. You have to remember, half of our generation might be of the ilk to sit down and listen to a 3-hour Joe Rogan podcast, but the other half is scrolling through 15-second TikToks, right? And getting clips and bites and things like that. So we have to find somebody who can appeal in both of those areas. And I think that Donald Trump really only appeals in one. Yeah. So I would say focusing on anti-establishment, though, is a positive message going forward for the Republican Party.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask next, AJ, and that's the rhino. I want to talk about this rhino tag because it's getting kind of old, but I understand people's reason for using it. Does it resonate with your age group, and what does it mean? How do you define a rhino? Christine, you want to weigh in on that?
Well, for me, I know a lot of people use the term rhino for anyone that they disagree with, but for me, I would use the term rhino to describe a politician that I feel is not using their power for good, like to fight for us, the people. You know, there are a lot of career politicians that are only there for themselves, and, you know, we need to get rid of them. If they haven't done anything significant for us, there's no reason that they should keep getting voted in.
Right, right. So that's what that means to you. AJ, you brought it up, really, this whole issue about anti-establishment. What does rhino mean to you?
To me, a rhino is somebody who is going to Washington, D.C., and then turning their back on their constituents that voted them in, right? It's the person that's going to go there, but then continue to vote for increasing in spending, and continue to go there and vote for policies and issues that the voters at home, they didn't vote them in to do, right? You'd say what you want about Donald Trump. For the most part, he was pretty bad on spending, I'll say that. But for the most part, he made promises and he kept his promises. And that's the type of person that we should be leaning to, is somebody who isn't just going to go there and then kowtow to the establishment elites that are in Washington, D.C.
So Kate, when we talk about a rhino, a lot of people think that means that they sort of bend to the Dems. Does that term mean that to you as well, that they sort of allow themselves to be manipulated by the other party, by the liberals, that they sign up for some of their policies? Is that what a rhino is to you?
Not necessarily. I think AJ and Christine summed it up pretty well, but I would really just like to make a distinction here between reaching across the aisle and kowtowing to a Democratic agenda. And I think that there's a lot of value in reaching across the aisle. I know it's hard to see right now, and our politics are so polarized.
Yeah.
But I think the Democrats are doing some things well, especially in terms of their marketing. And I think both parties need to kind of step back and maybe become a little bit more moderate, particularly the Republicans, because our country is about to undergo a major demographic shift.
Yeah.
Where, you know, there are more minorities and there are more, you know, emerging voices. And we need to be cognizant of that. I mean, every Republican candidate who won in 2020, they were a woman, a minority, or a veteran.
Wow.
And so we need to recognize that diversity is going to be a strength, and that means reaching across the aisle, and that means appealing to people that the Republican Party hasn't been that good at getting the message out to.
So diversity, not only in who we are putting in office, but do you think Republicans have come a long way as it relates to appealing to people with diverse backgrounds? Do we have a lot of work to do there, or have we actually maybe turned the corner a little bit in appealing to blue collar and appealing to the Latinos, appealing to Black America? Have we done better than in the past, AJ?
We've certainly done better. I wouldn't say that we've, you know, sprinted for very long. We haven't gotten miles, but we've done better.
Yeah.
But I want to say that the Republican Party is the party of the working class. It is the party of diversity, of thought, and skin color, and whatever else. And not that stuff really matters to the Republican Party, and it shouldn't. And I think again, this is something that we should talk about. The Democratic Party, right? What did Wall Street billionaires, millionaires, union bosses, not union workers, union bosses, what did they all do? They all broke towards Biden. All of them, right? The millionaires in Hollywood broke towards Biden. The billionaires and millionaires in the sports world broke towards Biden, right? Why is this? Because that's the party of the elitists, right? And I think that this is an important point to note, is that minorities, people of color, along with just young people in general, they don't trust the government, right? Mm-hmm. They have a distaste in their mouth for the government. Well, we're the party of small government, right?
Yeah.
They're the party of the government's going to come in and they're going to give you everything.
Right.
We're the party of small government, of individual opportunity, of breaking it down and saying that you can succeed if you work hard and you do the best you can, right? So we should be able to appeal to these people because we're the party of small government and they don't trust the government.
Yeah. So that's a great messaging change right there, that we need to embrace the reality of who we're actually appealing to, and they understand our policies. But one thing that people don't trust, Christine, is this climate change agenda, if you will. Now, this is something that we discussed before, and this is a generation gap because people in my generation have a tendency to either completely believe it blindly or just don't want to hear about it. They think climate change, they think New Green Deal, they think about Al Gore, they think a lot of things where they just deny it. Christine, is there a place for climate change in capitalism in our party? How do we address it?
Like I said in the introduction, there are a lot of problems that Republicans need to start noticing, and they can't just sweep it under the rug. We see it. It is happening, in the middle of winter. It is like 80 degrees outside, but they need to go back to their roots of the older GOPers, I'll say, who were very involved in preserving the climate and climate change, like Theodore Roosevelt with the National Park Service. They need to start looking towards these people. But, like I said before, and Kate did too, capitalism is a great thing. And saying that we need to, improve the environment by taking away capitalism is just like saying that we need to take all teachers out of school to improve education. So we need to find that happy medium there, and I think that people in the GOP can do this and start swaying their supporters by giving them some incentives, such as tax breaks,
Tax breaks for people who will address the issues of climate change that are real. Kate, we struggle with what is real and what is fabricated in climate change. Often it feels like it's used as a control tactic. Do you think that we can address climate change and still survive, our capitalistic society and economy still thrive and survive while addressing that issue at the same time?
Absolutely. I would wholeheartedly agree with what Christine just said about offering incentives. But really quickly, I'd like to backtrack. Christine mentioned kind of taking a page from the book of the old GOP. And I think that that's very interesting. Nixon established the EPA. And interestingly, this is something that I learned recently, Jackie Robinson campaigned for Nixon. So I think that we need to kind of look back and see, okay, the old Republican Party really was like doing a lot more with minority voters than we might have initially thought, or what our perception is today. And, to speak more to this minority thing, Black people and Latino people in general, we notice that they tend to be pretty culturally conservative in that they really care about family values.
Right.
And that's something that is easily reconcilable with the party platform of the Republican Party. So if Republicans can access that and kind of play into that a little bit, I think that there's so much untapped potential when it comes to minorities. It's, again, just a matter of changing the messaging and saying, we want you in our party. And this is what we offer. We offer family values. We offer these economic policies that are going to make you and your family live more comfortably.
Right. The Big Tent Party. I do think you guys are so right on the messaging. AJ, can you weigh in a little bit? I want you to touch on climate change, but also kind of shifting to energy, because this is another thing that we're not doing a good job of messaging about what's important in the future regarding our energy choices. So just weigh in on those issues.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think that the points that Christine and Kate made with turning back to Nixon forming the EPA and Roosevelt with the national parks are absolutely true. And I don't think that capitalism is going to be the driving force that makes green energy and climate and reversing climate change possible, right? I saw an ad on Instagram yesterday, and no joke, turning gum that people were chewing and they would throw on the sidewalk. Instead, they put up this sign and it said, "Put your gum here, your used gum." They took it and they converted all that used gum into skateboard wheels, right? Okay. Bayan Slat, I think that's how you say his name. He's a young European man, and he came up with the invention to basically collect all of the plastic that's currently in the Pacific, right? He's collecting them in these big nets, and he's turning all of that plastic into reusable things and different plastics and stuff like that to reuse.
Yeah.
And then recycle it and use it again, right? So Tesla is the biggest car company in the United States, the fastest growing car company in the United States, right? And like you said, energy is important and energy is in the future, right? So what is the one energy source that is the cleanest CO2 emissions, cost effective, but often forgotten and never incentivized?
Yeah.
And that's nuclear energy, right? Nuclear energy is the energy of the future, is the best energy that we have at this point. It's better than wind and solar, which are unreliable and unproductive. Nuclear energy is reliable, productive, and efficient. And I just want to do a quick plug to a conservative organization that's doing a great job in this, and that's the American Conservation Coalition, and they have the American Climate Contract. So sort of harking back to the Newt Gingrich, a contract with America.
Right.
And if you go on their website and you look into their plan, they break it down super easy, like 1-page explanations of 4 big issues in the climate. And so I suggest people looking into that because they're doing great work over there.
That's great. I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. So guys, as we close, here's my big closing question for each of you, because it's so important for me to understand this from the standpoint of your generation. I want you guys to tell me what you think the American dream is to you. And if you think you can still achieve it, will you be better off than your parents are? Because really that's a big part of what we do in this country from generation to generation. Christine, what's the American dream to you?
I think everybody has a different definition of the American dream, but for me, just seeing my hard work turn into all this great, plentiful fruit for me and my future family that I'll hopefully have to be able to enjoy is what the American dream is. I'm a firm believer that everybody who is an American has American privilege. Like, to achieve everything that you will get, it will not be easy. I have parents that used to be business owners, and I've seen it firsthand. But, we need to be patient. You need to keep working hard. And remember, like I said before, you have American privilege. The opportunities in this country are like no other. And if you don't see that, you need to ask yourself, why are there over 11 million immigrants from South America waiting at our border?
Right. Absolutely. Kate, the American dream, what does it mean to you? And do you think it's still achievable?
Well, what I see is so great about the American dream is that there is no one American dream. To me, the American dream means you have the ability to pursue your own ends in your own way. And if everyone is, achieving their dreams, then that's the American dream. And I think the American dream is alive and well. And I absolutely believe that it's still a thing, and it's still something that I feel that I can achieve.
Excellent. All right, AJ, you have the last word tonight. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, so I don't know if Kate and Christine can relate to this, but I swear every single year in high school, our first paper in English class was, "Is the American dream alive?" And every single year I said, absolutely, 100%. And so so it's the NFL draft today, so I'm gonna hearken to that, right? If you were born and you got to draft, you were the first pick in the draft, you got to pick where you were going, you would pick the United States of America every single time, without a question. We're the land of opportunity. We're the land of hope and optimism and the possibility to be better off than your parents were and their parents were.
Right.
My family has the story of the American dream, right? My great grandfather came off the boat from Italy, and he made $1.25 a day. He rode a horseback checking the AT&T power lines in New York City.
Wow.
That was my great grandfather. My great great grandfather, excuse me. My great grandfather fought in World War II. He was a chef for the Allied forces in World War II, and he raised a family in which my grandfather graduated from high school at 16 and began working in New York City Stock Exchange not far after. My father was a cop and is a construction worker. My mother is a bank teller, and they gave me the opportunity to chase my dreams and achieve my dreams of going to school and eventually, hopefully, becoming a lawyer myself. So the American dream is alive and well, but it requires one thing, and that's hard work.
Yeah.
And it's often too forgotten that you aren't guaranteed success in this country. You're guaranteed the ride, right? The roller coaster, the best part of the roller coaster isn't the end, it's the journey, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you're guaranteed in this country, that chance.
Yeah.
So the American dream is alive and well, like Kate said.
Yeah, I love what you said. You know, Reagan said, I'll paraphrase, that it's all about equal opportunities, not equal outcomes. It's on each of us to take advantage of what God has given us in this country. And listen, I'm not concerned about the three of you. Clearly, your future is bright. Jersey First is so blessed to have you. And I know you support what Jersey First is doing. I want everyone listening to go to the Jersey First website, Jersey First, that's number one, jerseyfirst.org. Sign the Jersey First Pledge. It's all about advocating for policies and things that protect families first and businesses first in Jersey. And we want everybody, whether or not you're running for office, you're just, somebody trying to pay your bills and have a better life in Jersey, commit to this, sign the pledge, be a part of it. Guys, thank you for being a part of Jersey First. Rosemary started something special. You guys make it that much better. I'm excited and encouraged as I get older that you guys are up and coming. I hope our party listens to you. Your ideas are fabulous. And if we can continue to embrace them, change our messaging, we have something special and a bright future. So guys, thank you so much. And we will see you at Jersey First. And to my audience, guys, we will see you next week. Thanks, guys.